Hi, my name is Phra Yuttadhammo, and I've been a monk in Thailand for the past 7 years. I was ordained in Chom Thong by my preceptor Ajahn Thong Sirimangalo, and I have since moved around to try to find a suitable place to start an international meditation center. The Lord Buddha said that we should always strive to go on alms round every morning for our food. So it's something that I've taken to heart, and I always try my best to make it a part of my daily routine. In Buddhism and Thai culture, it's very important to do good deeds. This is a source of happiness. So because of the teaching, it just becomes second nature to them. When they see someone who deserves something, yes, this monk is practicing in a way which is noble, which is honorable. They immediately move towards and they're looking for some way to support and to make merit, we say, with this person. Being a monk is a lot more about what you aren't than anything else. I mean, the Pali word for ordaining means going forth, leaving behind, and we leave behind the ordinary everyday life. We leave behind pretty much everything that makes us the average ordinary person, who we are, and all that's left is something like a nobody, a bum, if you want to say, someone who doesn't vote, who doesn't speak up on current events, well, sometimes, but doesn't get involved with the world, is someone who has left the world behind, and all that's left is someone who walks, who sits, who eats, who does things which everyone else does in a very ordinary way. You become very ordinary as a monk, I think, and maybe that's what's so fascinating about it, is that you're just being. I mean, how can you do that? And of course, often it involves living in the forest and so on, which is always somewhat romantic. But in the end, I think that's a lot to do with what the meditation is as well. It's coming back to the ordinary. Because most of our lives as ordinary people, and most of the things that get us into trouble, are the things that take us out of the ordinary everyday life. Our wishes, our desires, our wants, our needs, things of in the future, our attachment to the future, or attachment to the past, thinking or mourning or worrying about things which have nothing to do with right here and right now. So what you get when you leave all this behind is simply an ordinary state of being, which is in the end really just about nothing. It's just being. To me, that's what it means to be a monk. Hi, and welcome to this series of videos on how to meditate. In the first video, I'll be talking about what is the meaning of the word meditation, and what is the purpose of the practice of meditation, and how is it that we accomplish this purpose. First of all, the word meditation can mean many different things to different people. For some people, meditation means simply a calming of the mind, and creating of a pleasurable or a peaceful state of being for some time, as sort of like a vacation or an escape from the reality around us. For other people, meditation can mean a extraordinary or a special experience of some alternate state of reality, perhaps creating magical states or super mundane states of awareness. In this video, I'd like to take the word meditation, first of all, back to its root and explain it based on the meaning of the word meditation. When we look at the word meditation, we can see that it comes from a root very similar to the word medication. And so whereas medication means something which is used to cure the sicknesses which exist in the body, we then can understand meditation as something which is used to cure the sicknesses which exist in the mind. So as opposed to, when we look at medication, we can see that as opposed to a drug, it's not something that simply creates a state of pleasure or a state of happiness for some time. It's something which is actually used to create, to effect a change in the body, a state of greater bodily health, bring the body back to a state, its natural state of health. So in this way, meditation, we can understand it as something which not simply brings about a state of peace or calm temporarily. It's something which returns the mind, which may, for many of us, be in a unnatural state of being, based on its worries or stresses or conditioning, any kinds of conditioning from the world, the experience of the world around. Instead, we can see that meditation is something which actually affects a change and brings the mind back to its natural state of peace and happiness. So in these videos, it's important to understand that sometimes during the meditation, it may not feel peaceful and calm. Yeah. Sometimes the meditation is dealing with the very deep and unpleasant states which exist in our minds. States of stress, states of worry, states of anger, states of addiction, and so on. And so sometimes it might seem that this sort of meditation is not as peaceful as we might have wished for it. But we have to understand that this isn't simply a drug. This isn't simply a way to feel pleasure for a short time. It's something which is meant to effect a real change on our minds and on our hearts, to bring our minds and our hearts back to their natural state of clarity and their natural states of peace and happiness. So the next question is, how is it that we come to effect this change or this healing, this remedy for the states of anger or greed, of addiction, of delusion, of conceit and arrogance, of worry, of stress, of fear, and so on? How is it that we come to cure these things? And the practice here in this set of videos, the basis of the practice of meditation, as I'll be explaining it, is what we call a clear thought. We're creating a clear awareness of the experience as it happens in every moment. And the way we do this is we use an ancient technique which is called mantra. We're using the ancient practice of mantra meditation, but instead of focusing it on some sort of mantra, a word, which is super mundane or out of the ordinary, we're going to be focusing our attention on the ordinary, on the reality around us as we experience it. But we'll be using a mantra, this word, this name, this label, for the experience, which brings the mind into focus and to clearly experience that phenomenon as it arises. To know it clearly, to see it for what it is, and to not be addicted, attached, or upset, or averse to that experience. To simply know it and to experience it for what it is. So for instance, when we feel something in the body, or when we move our body, or when we think of something in the mind, or so on, we're going to create a clear thought, for instance, thinking. If we get angry, we're going to say to ourselves, angry. If we feel pain, we're going to say to ourselves, pain. We're going to pick a word which describes the experience accurately, and which therefore fixes the mind on the experience for what it is, not becoming upset or attached to the experience. And to do this, traditionally we'll break experience or break reality up into 4 parts. And so we can label reality in one of these 4 parts. Whatever we experience will be somewhere within these 4 parts. And on a basic level, these 4 parts are called body, the movements or the positions of the body, feelings, the sensations which exist in the body and in the mind when we feel pain or happiness or calm. The mind, this is the thoughts which exist in the mind. When we're thinking about the past or the future, good thoughts, bad thoughts, whatever kind of thoughts we have. And number 4, the mental states, the states of mind, whether they be emotional states or whether they be states of clarity or states of drowsiness or states of worry, states of doubt, or so on and so on. These 4, the body, the feelings, the thoughts, and the mental states, are the 4 foundations of the meditation practice. And this is what we're going to use to create a clear thought in the present moment. So for instance, every moment when we move our body, suppose we lift our hand, when we raise our hand, during the time we're meditating, we can say to ourselves, raising. When we're sitting still, we can say to ourselves, sitting. Or whatever position the body is in, we can be simply aware of the position of the body. It's one part of reality that we can use to create a clear thought. The second is the feelings that exist in the body and in the mind. When we feel pain in the body, we can say to ourselves, pain. We can repeat again and again to ourselves. We can say, pain, pain, pain. Instead of allowing the anger or the upset to arise because of the pain, we simply remind ourselves that it's merely a sensation which has arisen in the body. If we feel happy, we can say the same thing, happy, happy, happy. Not pushing it away, but also not attaching to it, giving it more significance than it actually has, and therefore not creating a state of addiction, a state of attachment, a state of need. When we feel calm, also we can say calm, 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 and so on. When we're thinking, number 3 is the thoughts. So when we're thinking about the past, good thoughts from the past, bad thoughts from the past, we can say to ourselves, thinking, thinking. Instead of letting them become something good or something bad, something to create attachment or something to create aversion, we simply know that they are thinking. They are thoughts which have arisen. When we're thinking about the future, when we're thinking about anything, we can simply come to be aware of the fact that we're thinking, instead of liking or disliking or becoming attached to the thoughts, allowing fear and worry and stress and so on to arise. And the emotional states or the mental states, when we feel angry. So once anger has arisen, instead of letting it build and snowball and become hatred or become an action where we attack, or a speech where we shout, where we yell, where we argue, we simply know that we're angry and we stop it there and we don't allow it to go further. When we feel greed, when we want something very bad, instead of taking or trying to trick someone into so that we can get the better of them, stealing or tricking or creating trouble for someone else so that we can get what we want. We see that we want something and we simply acknowledge it for what it is. And therefore we don't need to do bad deeds to get the things that we want. We say to ourselves, wanting, wanting. When we feel lazy or so on and we don't want to do the things which we know we should be doing, we can say to ourselves, lazy, lazy. When we're distracted or worried or stressed, we can say distracted or worried or stressed. When we feel doubt, we don't know if we can do what we need to do, or we're not sure what to do, or we're confused, we can say to ourselves, doubting, doubting, or confused, confused. So this is the basis of the meditation practice as I'm going to explain it in these videos. And this is the introduction on how to meditate. In the next video I'll be explaining how it is that we practice meditation, starting with sitting meditation. But for now, I'll leave you with this, and I wish for you all to find peace and happiness through the meditation. Thank you. Hi, so in this video I'll be talking a little bit about how we put into practice some of the concepts which I explained in the first video. And then I'll give a short demonstration on how to practice meditation in the sitting position. First of all, to go over what we talked about in the first video, meditation is something which is not just to create a peaceful or a calm state of mind. Meditation is something which is meant to remedy, to cure the sicknesses which exist in the mind. So in order to do this, we have to look at the present reality. We have to look at the reality as it comes to us in every moment. We can't send our mind away or think about faraway things. We have to try to keep our minds in the present moment. Sometimes this can be quite difficult for the beginner meditator, and for this reason we give the meditator a simple meditation exercise in the sitting position. Sitting meditation is something which is done as a basic meditation practice. It's something which anyone can do. You can do it either in the cross-legged sitting position, you can do it sitting on a chair. You can even apply the same technique to a lying position for someone who is not able to sit up. At any rate, once you're sitting in a sitting position, if you're going to sit cross-legged, you can simply sit with one foot in front of the other foot, and one foot, the front foot touching the back leg. You can sit with the foot on top of the other leg, or even you can sit with both feet on top of either leg. Again, this can also be performed sitting in a chair. It can be performed lying down. It can be performed sitting against a wall. As long as the body is in a comfortable position that is not going to bother you to the extent that your mind becomes overstressed, so that you're still able to be mindful. But also to this, not to the extent that it's so comfortable that you actually fall asleep and that you actually get lazy. So if you're someone who is easily falls asleep, you're better off not to do lying meditation unless absolutely necessary. It can also be used as a technique to put someone to sleep. For people who have insomnia, you can practice lying meditation until you fall asleep, and you'll find that actually you're able to sleep much better because your mind is not worrying, it's not stressing, it's not trying to fall asleep. It's instead simply watching the states of body and states of mind. At any rate, the practice of sitting meditation is to watch the movements of the body when we're sitting still. So at the moment when we're sitting still, the whole of our body is tranquil, and there's no movement in the body, except when the breath comes into the body and when the breath goes out of the body. There's a movement in the stomach, and if you put your hand on your stomach, you can feel this movement. For people who have never practiced meditation, it might seem unfamiliar, or it might be hard to find. But once you put your hand on the stomach, you'll be able to see for yourself that when the breath goes into the body, the stomach rises. Maybe just slightly, but it does rise naturally. When the breath goes out of the body, the stomach will naturally fall. If it's still hard to find even with your hand there, you can try lying down on your back. But at any rate, once you try this for some time, you'll be able to see for yourself that in a natural state, when the mind is not stressed, when the mind is not worried, or when the mind is not forcing the breath, you'll find that the stomach naturally rises and naturally falls. And we're going to use this as our basic technique of meditation. Once we get better at it, it'll become quite clear, and we'll be able to use it quite well as our meditation object. Now, the reason we're going to do this is, again, because it's quite difficult for us to simply begin to look at reality in its unadulterated form. Once we take this simple object, it's like training. It's like training wheels for a child, or for a child, even a younger child learning to walk. It's like in the beginning when the child lifts themselves up onto a chair or onto a table, holding on so that they don't fall over. Once they're able to stand up, then they begin to walk. So this practice is simply to begin to create this clear awareness, this clear thought. And so again, we use this mantra, or this label, this name. We use a word which is going to capture the reality of the present moment in our minds, in our attention, without creating liking or attachment to it, or disliking or aversion to it. So here, when the belly rises, we're simply going to say to ourselves, rising. When the belly falls, we're simply going to say to ourselves, falling. Rising, falling, rising, falling. And then the method is as follows. We sit with the legs crossed or in any position which is comfortable as necessary. Traditionally, we'll sit with one hand on top of the other and the thumbs touching at the tips. We sit with our back straight, although it doesn't have to be perfectly straight if this is uncomfortable, just as long as one is not bending over to the point where one isn't able to experience the breath. And with the eyes closed. Again, since we're focusing on the stomach, we don't want to have our eyes open for anything that will distract us away from our object. And once the eyes are closed, we simply say to ourselves, rising, falling, rising, falling. Again, we're not saying at the mouth. It's important that even though I speak these words out loud, that you understand we're creating this clear thought in the mind. And where is the mind? Well, it should be with the stomach. So we're actually something like speaking into our stomach. We're creating this clear thought in the stomach where the mind is at that moment. And so the practice is saying to ourselves in our mind, rising, falling, rising, falling. And this can be carried out for many minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or so on. At the time when we're doing this, this is the basic practice. It's important to be aware that we're still keeping track of the 4 foundations, the body, the feelings, the mind, and the mental states. So the body here we have in the rising and the falling, that's clear. The feelings, well, this is when we're sitting and we're watching the rising and falling, our mind is carried away to one of the feelings which arise in the body, a feeling of pain, for instance. When we're sitting in this position for long periods of time without moving, it can create states of pain and physical pain. So instead of getting upset or letting this become something which is going to create suffering for us, we take that as our meditation object. Remember, we can use any 4 of these because all 4 of these are part of reality. We don't have to stay with the rising and falling. Instead, now we're going to take our new friend, which is the pain. And we're going to look at that and come to see it clearly. And so we focus on the pain and say to ourselves, pain, 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 until it goes away. If we feel happy, we can say to ourselves, happy. Sometimes when we sit in meditation, we feel very peaceful. We can say to ourselves, peaceful or calm, until that feeling goes away. When it goes away, then we come back again to the rising and the falling of the stomach again. The third one is the thoughts. So when we're sitting, sometimes we're watching the rising and falling, but our mind starts to wander, thinking about the past, thinking about the future, thinking about this, that, good thoughts, bad thoughts, all sorts of thoughts. Any kind of thought might arise. Instead of letting our minds wander and drift away and lose track of reality, we bring our minds back to the reality of the thought, and we say to ourselves, thinking. As I explained in the first video, well, here's where we're going to put it into use. Instead of focusing on the rising and falling alone, when we start to think, we say to ourselves, thinking. We can say to ourselves, thinking, thinking, and it will go away automatically by itself, and then we can come back to the rising and falling again. As for mental states, when we have liking, we like this or like that. When we don't like, have disliking, anger, frustration, we can say angry, angry, frustrated, frustrated. When we feel lazy or tired or drowsy, we can say to ourselves tired, tired, or drowsy, drowsy. When we feel distracted or worried, we can say distracted, distracted, or worried, worried. When we have doubt arising in the mind, we can say to ourselves doubting, doubting, or confusion, or so on. This fourth one are particularly things which create difficulty in the meditation. So actually our meditation should go quite smoothly. We should be able to watch the rising and falling or the pain or so on. But because of the mental states, the states of liking or disliking, of drowsiness, of distraction, of doubt, this is why our meditation cannot progress. So these ones are especially important to keep track of and to keep an eye on. When they arise, we have to quickly catch them and bring the mind back again to the present moment. The benefits of this practice of meditation, what we should see as we practice, the first thing which we should see are that our mind starts to calm down, and it does actually become more peaceful, even though this isn't, right away this isn't our goal. We can see that gradually as we practice, the first thing that happens is our mind does become calmer, our mind does become happier, it does become lighter, and it does become freer from the things which bind it to suffering, which keep it in these loops and these endless loops of suffering. The second thing we come to see is that we come to realize things about ourselves, and we come to realize things about the world around us. And we come to understand that in ourselves we have certain things which we could do without, and we come to see why suffering arises in our minds and in our hearts, why we do fall into suffering. We come to understand things. We understand about other people. When people get angry at us, before we thought they were evil. Now we understand they have the same emotions which we have inside of ourselves. And we come to understand why people do and say and think the things that they do. We come to see that it's because they're just like us and we are just like them. The third thing that we come to see in the practice, the result which we should be able to see, is that we're more aware. We're more aware of the world around us. We're more aware of the people around us. We're more aware of the things inside of us that are arising and ceasing in the present moment. So when things come, when difficult situations arise, instead of being caught off guard and falling into fear and anxiety and confusion and stress, we're able to take things much better and take things as they go. We're able to take sickness much better. We're able to take difficulty much better. Even old age, sickness, death, we're able to take much better through the practice of meditation. The fourth thing is what we're really aiming for is we're aiming to get rid of our to rid ourselves of the evils and the unpleasantness, the unwholesome states which exist in our minds. These states of anger, greed, delusion, anxiety, worry, stress, fear, arrogance, conceit, all sorts of things which are unuseful for us, which are of no use, of no benefit to us or to other people. And in fact, they are worse than that. They create suffering. They create unhappiness and stress for us and for the people around us. So this is an explanation of how and why we practice how to practice sitting meditation, why we practice meditation, and what we should hope to gain from the practice. Now I'd like to invite the viewers to practice together, say 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however minutes is comfortable for you. We'll practice sitting meditation together. And this will end my second video on how to practice meditation. And I hope, again, that all of you, that this meditation will bring to you peace and happiness in your everyday life. So that's all for now, and now I'd invite you to sit with me together in sitting meditation. Hi. So in this video, I will be explaining the technique of walking meditation. Walking meditation has many of the same benefits of sitting meditation. So in the same way as when we do the sitting meditation, we're going to try to keep the mind in the present moment and aware of the phenomena as they arise, to try to create a clear awareness of the reality around us. But the question comes, why then do we have to switch to walking meditation? Why is it not enough that we sit still and do sitting meditation? This is because walking meditation has several benefits which are not found in the sitting meditation. If we are to just practice sitting meditation alone, we find that especially for our bodies, because we live especially such sedentary lifestyles in this day and age, we find that without some exercise or some movement of the body, that our health and our well-being in terms of our ability to continue in the meditation practice can sometimes be hampered. When we get up and we do walking meditation, or in this case when we do walking meditation first, we find that several benefits are gained. First of all, we're able to then walk long distances. We find that nowadays because we sit so much, we're sitting in cars, or we're sitting in an office, or we're sitting in school, or so on, we find that we're unable to undertake long journeys on foot. Whereas in ancient times, we would have been able to walk 20 or 30 kilometers a day even. Nowadays, we find that even a walk to the store is too much of a hassle. Once we do walking meditation, because we are working out the muscles and the systems in the body. We find that we're able to be patient and endure long stretches of walking. This is important, especially if we're going to live a peaceful and a clear life, a life where we are in reality, where we are involved with reality, we're involved with the nature around us, so that we're able to appreciate and understand things as they really are, instead of simply using them to get what we want all the time. The second benefit from walking meditation is that it gives us patience and it gives us endurance. Because it is something which is done very slowly and it is very repetitious, we find that it tests our patience. And if we are practicing it on a daily basis, it can lift our patience and our endurance in any kind of work or activity that we have to do, which is perhaps unpleasant. Even though it's something that we know we have to do, we might not wish to do it. Once we practice walking meditation, we can overcome this. The third is that it helps to overcome sicknesses which exist in the body. If we have any sort of sickness, a disease, or even diseases which are otherwise uncurable. Sometimes people, through the practice of meditation, have cured cancer, have overcome many kinds of sicknesses in the body, simply through the practice of meditation. Because at the moment of walking meditation, both your mind is very focused and your body is very calm. So just with other martial arts or other methods of healing using the mind, walking meditation is something which, as a byproduct, can help to heal the body. The fourth benefit is the effect that it has on the digestive system. So when we sit around all the time, when we're not doing anything with the body, we find that sometimes our body's ability to digest the food which we've eaten can be limited. When we do the walking meditation, especially because it's slow and repetitious, the body is given a chance to work through the food which we have eaten and digest it for the best benefit for our body. The fifth benefit, which is most important in the meditation practice, and the reason why we do the walking before we do the sitting, is that the concentration which comes from walking, because it's dynamic, that it lasts into the sitting meditation. It lasts for a long time. We can find that if we just do sitting meditation, once we finish, our concentration dissipates very quickly. When we practice walking meditation, this is otherwise, and it continues on into the sitting meditation. So the concentration has much more strength, and when we begin to do the sitting meditation after the walking, we find that we're already ready. We're already able to focus the mind very quickly on the phenomena as they arise. So these are the reasons, some of the reasons anyway, why we practice walking meditation as well as sitting meditation. And now I'd like to give a demonstration on how exactly we do the walking meditation. Walking meditation is performed with the feet close together, the hands, right hand holding the left hand, either in front or in behind. The eyes are open, and you're looking at the floor in front of you about 2 meters out. And you're going to walk in a line. You can walk about 3 or 4 meters with your eyes looking at the floor in front, the ground in front of you, about 2 meters or 6 feet out. You start with the right foot and you move it 1 foot length, with the heel just to be in line with the toes of the back foot. And then the same with the left foot, 1 foot length each time. As you do this, you say to yourself, as we have been from the beginning of this series, you make a note of the motion as it occurs. So here we say to ourselves, step being right, step being left, step being right, and so on. Making the acknowledgement or the note, making the noting at the moment of the movement. Step being right, step being left, step being right, step being left, stepping right, stepping left, and on until you reach the end of the walking path. Once you come to the end, we have to turn around. We're going to walk in the other direction. The method of turning around is to bring the back foot up to stand next to the front foot. As you do this, you say to yourself, stopping, 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 just coming aware of the fact that you're stopping. Once you're standing still, say to yourself, standing, standing, standing. And when you go to turn around, the method of turning is to lift the right foot off the floor and turn it 90 degrees, saying to yourself, one time, turning. And then the left foot the same, turning. And one more time, turning, turning. And then you're facing the other direction. When you're standing in the other direction, you start all over, say to yourself, standing, standing, standing. And then stepping right, stepping left, stepping right, stepping left. And the most important part is that you're making the acknowledgement as the foot moves. So if you say to yourself, stepping right and then move, or you move first and then say stepping right, this is incorrect because you're not really aware of the action as it occurs. To make a correct acknowledgement and to bring about the clarity of mind which we're hoping for, you have to move the foot as you make the acknowledgement. Stepping right, stepping left. And as you're walking, if something comes into your mind, say a thought or so on, or a feeling or some emotion arises, during that time, instead of continuing to walk and letting your mind get distracted, bring your back foot up and actually stop in the middle of your walking steps. Say to yourself, stopping, stopping, stopping. And then become aware of the thought or aware of the emotion and say to yourself, thinking, 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 or angry, or sad, or bored, or happy. If you feel pain, say pain, and so on. And once it goes away, then continue on your walking. Stepping right, stepping left, stepping right, stepping left, and so on. And the technique is to walk back and forth, making the acknowledgement in your mind till you come to the end and then bring the foot up again, stopping, 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 standing, 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 turning, 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 and then standing, 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 and so on. To go back and forth for, say, 10 minutes. And here we try to balance the walking meditation with the sitting meditation. So if suppose you were to do 10 minutes of walking meditation, then we would also expect that you would do 10 minutes of sitting meditation. If you do 15 minutes of walking meditation, then also do 15 minutes of sitting meditation, and so on. This concludes the demonstration of how to practice walking meditation. And thank you for tuning in. I wish you all the best. Hi. So in this video, I will be talking about some of the important qualities of meditation, which we need to keep in mind during the time that we do the walking or the sitting meditation. So it's not enough for us to say that we're doing the walking, we're doing the sitting on a regular basis, and expect that we should all receive the same benefits from the practice, no matter what's going on in our minds or how we're carrying out the practice. Our practice has to have certain important qualities to it. in order for us to consider that our practice is a success, in order for us to really get something out of it. The first important quality of meditation practice is that we have to make the acknowledgement in the present moment. Our mind should always be in the here and now. We cannot let our minds fall into the past or go ahead into the future. We shouldn't think about how many more minutes are left in the practice or how many minutes we've practiced or so on. Our mind should always be in the present moment. We should also be continuously in the present moment. So not only practicing this moment, but that we are practicing continuously from one moment to the next. At the moment when we finish the walking meditation, we should try to continue our awareness and our acknowledgement of the present moment into the sitting meditation. Once we finish the sitting meditation, when we're going to get up and go on with our lives, we should try to continue into our lives, carry on continuously. During the time that we're doing the walking meditation, the same, we should try to keep our minds in the present moment through the whole of the practice. When we do the sitting, trying to keep it on the rising and falling again and again continuously. Just like the rain falling, it is said that meditation practice is like rain falling. Every moment that we're aware is like one drop of rain. And though it might not seem like that much, once we're mindful again and again and aware again and again, just like rain falling, it can flood and create a huge flood or fill up a lake. In the same way, our awareness again and again and one moment after one moment can create very strong states of concentration based on the present moment, so that we're very clearly aware and we create a great understanding and clarity of mind in regards to reality. Another important point is the actual acknowledgement, or the quality of the acknowledgement. We have to first of all have a certain amount of effort. It takes effort for us to do this again and again, and we have to acknowledge this. And we can't just let ourselves say rising, falling, and let the mind drift. We have to push the mind and keep the mind with the present moment, with the object as it arises, whatever object that is. So if it's the rising and the falling in the beginning, staying with it again and again, sending the mind out, instead of keeping the mind up here or at the mouth, sending the mind out to the object again and again and again, and keeping the mind very sort of a strong state of mind, keeping our mind strong and focused on the present moment. Once we do this, then we'll begin to become aware of the object, and this is another important thing, that we're actually aware of the object as it is occurring, so that we're not just saying rising, falling, but once we push our minds to the object, that we actually know from the beginning to the end of the motion. If it's pain, that we actually are aware of the pain. If it's thoughts, that we're actually aware of the thought. Once we become aware of the thought, then we can make the acknowledgement. And this is, of course, the most important part, is that actually we grasp and we fix the mind on that awareness, not letting it continue on into liking or disliking or creating all sorts of mental activity or judgments about the object. The final important fundamental quality of practice is called balancing the faculties. So it's recognized that all people have certain faculties in their mind. These are qualities of mind which are very beneficial. Altogether there are 5. These are the confidence, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And these have to, we say these have to be balanced with each other. For instance, some people might have strong confidence, but they may have low wisdom. This means that they have what we call blind faith. They believe things simply because of this is what they've been told, or because of some desire to believe, not because of any rational understanding. Some people have strong wisdom but low faith, so they doubt everything. And they refuse to believe anything, even from a respected authority or so on. Or they refuse to believe anything because they themselves have never experienced it, because they've never undertaken the meditation practice. Some people have strong effort, but weak concentration. In this case, the mind becomes distracted, where the mind is not focused. It can't focus on anything. Some people have strong concentration, but weak effort. And this makes people lazy or drowsy, keeps us from sending the mind on and on and on, keeping up with the present moment. and we find ourselves getting drowsy and falling asleep. The way we balance these, we balance confidence with wisdom and effort with concentration. We use mindfulness. We use this clear thought. The effort, sending the mind to the object, the awareness of the object, the focusing on the object, and the clear knowing of the object. These are all of the mental faculties put into one: confidence, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Once we've balanced the four outside faculties with the faculty of mindfulness, or the clear awareness, they will work together and they will create a very strong state of mind, where we have strong confidence, we have strong effort, we are clearly mindful, and we have strong concentration, and we have very sure wisdom, because we see for ourselves and we understand for ourselves without the need to rely on someone else. At that time, this is when the mind is able to overcome states of suffering, overcome states of depression. It's able to, like a strong man is able to bend an iron bar. We also can bend and shape and mold our minds and bring our minds back to a state of peace and happiness, overcoming all sorts of unpleasant states. This is a basic understanding of some of the fundamentals, some of the fundamental qualities of meditation which we need to keep in mind. We need to be in the present moment and practice continuously. We need to make the clear thought, and we can't just say to ourselves, rising, falling. We have to actually know what's going on in the present moment. And we have to balance the faculties. So this is another in the series on how to meditate, and this is sort of a addition to the actual technique of meditation, which is meant to give a better, stronger quality and a greater benefit to the meditation practice. So I hope that through this you are able to find peace and happiness and freedom from suffering. Thank you again for tuning in, and all the best. So in this video, I will be talking about a third technique of meditation, which is generally used as a warm-up practice before doing the walking and the sitting meditation. This technique is called mindful prostration. Now, prostration is something which people of various religious traditions are familiar with around the world. For instance, in Thailand, it is used as a means to pay respect to one's parents or one's teachers or figures of religious reverence. In other religious traditions, it might be used as a form of worship for a divinity, a god or an angel or an object of worship. In the meditation practice, we're using the prostration as a means of paying respect to the actual meditation practice itself. So what we mean by mindful prostration is, besides simply being a warm-up, it's also a way of creating a humble and a sincere attitude towards the meditation practice, so that we have a feeling that what we're doing is not something as a hobby or just for fun. It's something that we seriously hope to incorporate into our lives and to make a part of who we are. That what we're practicing here is something of great significance, of great importance, and something worthy of our respect. So this doesn't mean that we are worshiping or we are bowing down to an individual or an entity of any sort. It's a way of paying respect to the practice which we're about to undertake. Not in a religious sense, but in a sense, in the same way the Thai people will pay respect to their parents, their elders, or their teachers. It also can be thought of as simply a warm-up exercise. So instead of doing a simple prostration, we're going to actually be focusing on the movements of the body as we do the prostration. But in order to get a sense of what is meant by prostration, I'm going to give as an example, the method of prostration used by the Thai people when they would normally pay respect to someone higher than themselves. This is because that particular prostration method will then be used as a model on which we can then do our mindful prostration. So in order that you get an understanding of what the prostration should look like, I'll first perform for you to see a traditional Thai prostration. And so the prostration is typically three prostrations, three bows of respect. And it's performed on one's knees. Traditionally with the person sitting on their toes. But if this is uncomfortable, you can also sit down on the tops of your feet. You can do as is most comfortable for you. To start, the hands are placed on the thighs. The back is straight, the eyes are open. And one begins by bringing the hands up to the chest, then touching at the eyebrows, and then out in a W shape with the thumbs touching, down to touch the floor in front. The elbows will touch in front of the knees, and the head goes down to touch the thumbs between the eyebrows. Bringing the head up again, and then the hands up to touch together in front of the chest. This is one prostration. Then one goes on to do the second prostration up to the forehead, and out again. And back up. And a third time. And after the third prostration, we then bring the hands up to the forehead, but instead of out again, we bring the hands simply back down to the chest. And this is a traditional Thai prostration. This is going to be the model for what we call the mindful prostration. So it's a means of using this bodily movement as a meditation technique, or as I said, a means of paying respect and building up states of humility and of respect, of sincerity in regards to the meditation practice. So we begin in the same way by putting the hands on the thighs, and we start with the right hand, one hand at a time, because here we're going to be watching the movements of the hand. Again, we're focusing on the body as our primary meditation object. As the hand turns, we say to ourselves, turning, and we say it 3 times, turning, turning, turning. Again, keeping the mind, keeping the noting, the mantra, the clear thought in the present moment. So as the hand begins to turn, we say turning. When it's in the middle, we say turning again. And when it finishes, turning. We say it 3 times, saying to ourselves again, turning, turning, turning. When the hand raises, we say to ourselves, raising, raising, raising. And when it touches the chest, we say touching, touching, touching. Then the same with the left hand, turning, 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 raising, 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 touching, touching, touching. Then up to the forehead, raising, 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 touching, 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 and back down to the chest, lowering, 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 touching, touching, touching. So instead of going out, we've brought the hands back down to the chest again. Then we do the actual prostration. First we bend the back, bending, bending, bending. And then again bring the hands out, but this time one at a time. Lowering, lowering, lowering. Touching, touching, touching. Covering, covering, covering. Lowering, lowering, lowering. Touching, touching, touching. Covering, covering, covering. Bending, bending, bending. Touching, touching, touching. Raising, raising, raising. Turning, turning, turning. And here it starts over again. So we start with the turning 3 times, this time from the floor. And then the hand up, raising, 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 and so on. Touching, touching, touching. Turning, turning, turning. raising, 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 touching, 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 raising, 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 touching, 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 lowering, 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 touching, 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 bending, 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 lowering, 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 touching, 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 covering, 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 lowering, 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 touching, 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 covering, 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 bending, 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 touching, 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 raising, 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 and then a third time as well, exactly the same way. Up, and again, each one step at a time, bending and so on. And after the third prostration, we come up raising, 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 touching, 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 and up again to the, after the third time, up again to the forehead, raising, 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 touching, 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 lowering, 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 touching, touching, touching. And instead of bending again to do a fourth prostration, we instead bring the hands down to rest on the thighs, lowering, 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 touching, 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 covering, 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 lowering, 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 touching, 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 covering, covering, covering. Once we finish that, we continue on with the walking meditation and then with the sitting meditation. So it's important that once you finish this, you don't just get up to do the walking meditation, you continue on with the mindfulness. As you go to stand up, first you say to yourself, sitting, 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 and then standing, standing, and you stand up, and then slowly go to do the walking meditation, making sure that your mindfulness, your awareness, your clear awareness of the present moment is continuous. So that's all for today. This is the practice of what we call mindful prostration. So I hope again that this practice brings you both peace, happiness, and clarity of mind. Thank you. Hi. In this video, I'll be talking about some of the ways in which we can incorporate the meditation practice into our daily life. First of all, the first important thing to explain in terms of incorporating the meditation practice into our daily life are those things which it's going to be important for us to abstain from if our meditation practice is to be effective and is to have good results in our daily life. As we mentioned in the beginning, meditation is an equivalent to medication. And as we know with medication, there are always certain things which you can't take in conjunction with the medication. Some certain things which, when taken together with the medication, will cause the medication to be ineffective, or will be counterindicative to the results which we're hoping to get from the medication. So certain things, when we take medication, there's always certain things we have to take out of our diet. But with meditation, it's very similar. Meditation is something which is to bring about a certain state of clarity or a natural state of purity in the mind, to bring our minds back to this state of clarity and sobriety which is free from suffering. So then there are certain actions, certain things which we can do by way of body or by way of speech, which are going to be counterindicative, which are going to have the opposite effect, which are going to create a more clouded state of mind, which are going to bring about high states of anger, high states of addiction, high states of delusion, high states of clouded mind states. So these things we're going to have to take out of our diet, so to speak, if our meditation is to be effective. The first thing that we have to take out is not to kill. We have to make a promise to ourselves that we're not going to kill living beings, not to kill living ants or mosquitoes or any sort of living being which breathes and which is in and of itself doesn't wish to die. Number two, not to steal. So if our meditation is to be effective, we have to be able to respect the possessions of other people and not to take things without permission. Number three, not to commit adultery or sexual misconduct, to get involved in romantic relationships or sexual conduct which is emotionally or spiritually damaging to other people. Number 4, not to tell lies, not to deceive other people or take them away from their reality. And number 5, not to take drugs or alcohol. And these are not to take anything really which is going to be intoxicating for our minds, things which create states of insobriety, take us away from our natural, pure, clear state of mind. These things it's very important that we actually abstain from them completely if our meditation practice is to be successful. There are certain other things which can be undertaken, can be partaken of, but must be partaken of in moderation if our meditation is to be successful. These things are not unwholesome, but when taken in conjunction with the meditation, they reduce the effect. They take away from the clarity of the mind when taken out of moderation. These are things like, first of all, eating. We have to be careful not to eat too much. If we're always obsessed with food, this is one major addiction. It's something which creates sloth, which creates an unhealthy bodily state as well. It's something which is overall not conducive for meditation practice. This is overeating. We have to eat to stay alive, but we shouldn't live simply to eat. Another one is entertainment. Watching television, watching movies, listening to music, and so on. These are not unwholesome things, but when taken in excess, they create states of addiction and states of insobriety actually in the mind. They take the mind out of its natural clarity. Using the internet, for instance, should be done in moderation. And the third one is that as far as sleeping. Now, sleeping can be one addiction that we often overlook, and we don't realize that actually we enjoy sleeping so much. And whenever problems arise, we always find ourselves going to take a nap or trying to sleep more. Some people actually become insomniac because they are so obsessed about their sleep. And we find that through the meditation practice, actually we need very little sleep. And a lack of sleep is not a real problem because our minds are so calm and so pure all the time. These are things which have to be taken in moderation. And altogether, these are things which we have to start to take out of our lives if the meditation is to be a successful part of our daily life. Now on to the question, how do we then incorporate the meditation directly into our daily life? And this we do in 2 ways. First of all, we focus on the body. Now the body in general, it's in one of the 4 major postures at all times. So either we're sitting, or we're standing, or we're walking, or we're lying down. And we can use these 4 postures as a sort of a very clear and very gross base for us to always find something to be mindful of, to create a clear thought. So when we're walking, instead of simply walking and letting our minds wander, we can say to ourselves, walking, 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 walking. When we're standing, we can say standing, standing. When we sit, we can say sitting, sitting. When we lie down, lying, lying, lying. This is when we're not actually doing the meditation. We can undertake this practice at all times. Similarly, with minor movements of the body, when we bend, we can say bending. When we stretch, stretching. When we move the hand, moving. When we brush our teeth, brushing. When we eat food, chewing, chewing, and swallowing, swallowing, and so on. Any movement that we make in the body during the day, we can be mindful of. When we go to the washroom, when we take a shower, when we change our clothes, when we wash our clothes, whatever we do during the day, we can be mindful of that as well, creating a clear thought based on the movements of the body. This is the first way of incorporating the practice directly into our daily life. The second way is we can use the senses. So seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling. Normally when we see something, we either enjoy it or we get upset by it. Well, now we're going to start to use it to create a clear thought, not to create a judging thought. When we see something, just to know that we're seeing. Say to ourselves, seeing, seeing, seeing. When we hear something, instead of listening and enjoying or getting angry and upset by it, we say to ourselves, hearing. And when we smell, we can say smelling. When we taste, instead of enjoying it or getting repulsed by the taste, we can simply say to ourselves, tasting, tasting, and keep our mind clear. When we feel something on the body, hot or cold, hard or soft, or whatever feeling, we say to ourselves, feeling, feeling, feeling. These 2 ways are sort of a general practice which we can undertake in our daily life, in a way of incorporating the meditation practice directly into our daily life. Of course, we can also be mindful of all of the things which I mentioned in the earlier videos, pain, for instance, or the emotions, anger or greed or so on. But besides all of those, this we can say as an addition, which once we've mastered the 4 foundations, which I mentioned in an earlier video, we can then add all of these things on as well, as a way of incorporating the practice into our daily life. This is an explanation of meditation practice in daily life. And this concludes the set of videos on how to meditate. And I would like to thank you all for watching, taking the time to watch these videos. And I really, truly, sincerely hope that these videos bring peace and happiness and freedom from suffering to you and all of the people around you. Again, thank you for tuning in. If you'd like more information, you're welcome to contact us through the website. And all the best to you.